Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CRE PN Radio. Thanks for joining us. My name is J. Darren Gross. This is the podcast focused on commercial real estate investment and risk management strategies. Weekly, we have conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their experience and insight to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Today's interview is sponsored by Building Insurance and Risk. When you invest in real estate, it pays to work with a real estate investor protection specialist to protect yourself and your investment from catastrophic loss. The experts at Building Insurance and Risk focus on real estate investor protection. They provide you with multiple insurance coverage offers and a side-by-side coverage comparison. To learn more, go to buildinginsuranceRisk.com. Today, my guest is Franco Perez. Franco grew up in a family that experienced unstable housing. Today, Franco is on a mission to create affordable housing in Silicon Valley. And in just a minute, we're going to speak with Franco about how mobile homes are the easy answer to the housing crisis. But first, a quick reminder, if you like our show, CRE PN Radio, there are a couple things you can do to help us out. You can like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we encourage you to leave a comment. We'd love to hear from our listeners. Also, if you want to see how handsome our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube at Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. And while you're there, please subscribe. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Franco Perez. Welcome to CRE PN Radio.
Thanks so much for having me, Darren.
Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation today. But before we get started, if you could take just a minute and share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Yeah. I guess one thing is I grew up in the Philippines at a young age and then moved over here with immigrant parents. And it's me, my younger sister, and my parents that moved to the Silicon Valley, San Jose, California specifically. From that, I was kind of put in a weird situation where my dad was the main breadwinner. They had a divorce. My dad left. And immediately I was put in a situation where I had to survive and pay for housing and support my younger sister and my mom at about 17, 18 years old. And from that, it was one of the hardest times of my life. And I remember at the end of every single month trying to just gather as much money as I could to just pay my rent to the landlord, to the homeowner. And I remember reflecting on how difficult that was and why is it this way? I feel like we're good people. I'm a good person, but it's so difficult for us to just survive in this area, right? And having gone through that experience, I later became an agent, did real estate stuff for a while, did a good job at that, and then really found out that I didn't love being a real estate agent. The industry kind of is geared towards helping the richest people you can help find the most expensive real estate that they can. And that's really how you progress in that industry. However, I wanted to find something that was I wanted to build something that was going to benefit people that were in my shoes, that are currently going through that struggle of that rat race, that are currently maybe having that same pain of trying to pay for rent just to survive. And how can I build something that can help make their life just a little bit easier, right? And so I went along trying to do government work, didn't like that route. And then I came across mobile homes and realized that it's such a misunderstood asset class. There's a lot of people that are able to get out of that rental rat race and then get into these homes. Then they're able to kind of get a lot of benefits of home ownership to then in the future, after 3 to 5 years, then be able to purchase single family. Because in San Jose, it's like you rent a 1-bedroom, 1-bath for $3,000 a month, or you buy a median price home for $1.7 million, right? And it's so hard to imagine you can buy an expensive single family home when you're paying rent all the time and there's no stepping stone in between. And we've found that mobile homes are that perfect stepping stone in between. And since then, we've worked on guiding people to get out of renting and then starting their wealth journey. But yeah, that's kind of how we got started. And I've got hooked and love helping the clients that we help, and then both on the personal end and then also on the investor end as well.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing the background story there, and kind of what, how you got to where you are. So I'm curious, you mentioned growing up, you're kind of the housing struggle. Did you ever live in mobile home housing? Was that ever an option for you?
Personally, I didn't. I was always renting. We were renting for a while, and then we got to a point to where I was able to make enough money as an agent to be able to purchase. But in those shoes, in that phase of my life, it's one of those things that I wish we were taught more in school, values of where our money goes, the importance of ownership, and how it's not only our career that we should be worried about, right? And it is one of those things that I personally feel if I did know about it, my life would have been able to progress a lot easier, you know?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of lessons in that or like that in life, and if I'd only known or had a lot of it's what we don't know, like you said, that nobody introduced it to you or it didn't appear to be an option, kind of thing. So I get it. So tell me about your current situation. You mentioned the mobile homes. Are you uh, working to invest in mobile home parks? Are you working to find uh, homes for individuals to buy, or tell me a little bit about how you're set up.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really started with just doing the later part, being an agent to help people get into purchasing these mobile homes, selling mobile homes. What I've found is that because of these bad stigmas and these bad myths around mobile homes, there's really bad service around the whole mobile home industry. So, unfortunately, part of the world of the real estate agent world is because a lot of agents also don't know about it. What's happening is these people that could barely qualify for single family homes are now being ignored, right? A lot of the advice that these people are getting is like, hey, sorry, you don't make enough or you don't have enough as a down payment, save up more, make more, and then later we can talk. And then they just have to go back into that rent cycle. Now, with us, we're able to create a solution that's actually going to benefit them to get that level ahead, right? So we give advice as best as we can to the consumer on how they can have a pathway to be able to get to that ownership. And it's through, and it's a perfect tool to have the mobile home side of it. So we did that for a long time. And then we got into why are these, in a lot of these metro areas, people don't actually know that these mobile home parks are around. Like in the Santa Clara County, we have about 58 parks. And they're in key areas, like right across the street from a Google campus. Another one's in the right next to a Samsung headquarters. And these were built in the 70s, meant for the working, like farmers or working people. Now, they were built to be temporary. Now, why cannot we convert these old single wide 1970 homes? They're average about 700 square feet. So now what we're doing is we're converting these homes into something massive, a 1,600 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath that looks just like a new development single family home today, right? Interior looks beautiful. We have 12-foot flat, high ceilings, and really luxurious homes. And that's really been our mission, is to break these stigmas and myths around mobile homes by making them beautiful and making them more modern, because it really helps advance people to get out of that rat race. And we want to break those myths as best as we can.
Got it. So just to make sure I understand, are you acting then as an agent to help people that are buying the mobile homes, or are you acting as a park? Are you investing in parks and providing the opportunity of the newer mobile homes and selling the mobile homes? I'm still not. I want
Sorry
to
about
make sure I understand you. Yeah.
So it's actually a mix of both. So we try to be the all around anything for mobile homes. So we help with the agent side. We have several agents on our team throughout San Jose, LA, San Diego. And then also we kind of have the construction development side where we help people that own one of these old mobile homes. They want to replace that one with a new, bigger one. That's the new big part of our business now. So we help that for direct to consumer. And then also we help park owners, these people that own these mobile home parks, we help them replace their old units and develop their parks as well. And so that's, hopefully that answered the question.
Got it. No, I was trying to understand if you were actually, um, if you had an equity stake in a park, or if it was more of the units that you were transacting. And if I understand right, so basically it's more on the focus of the units themselves for the individual unit owners, and then I guess consult with park owners on how they can maximize or improve their park.
Exactly that.
Got it. Got it. So you mentioned kind of the stigma, um, the way people have kind of, I guess, probably more ignored parks. Um, I think growing up, I can remember driving past them, and a lot of them looked more like something you could actually tow behind a vehicle, whereas now I think they're more, double wide, or I don't know if there's a triple wide, but I mean, there's significantly larger um, properties than what they once were. Um, Tell me about some of the transitions. So take me through an example of somebody, an individual, and then also tell me a little bit about how you work with a park owner. Um, if they've got old, tired properties, how do you go about uh, making or helping them transition to a newer unit and or a newer look in the park?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about one of our first clients. There's a lady that's a teacher that lives in one of these older, like you said, looking homes, might even look towable, right? So it's about 700 square foot. Um, this lady's a teacher, her name's Maria, and has this home, and their kids are growing. She has a husband and two kids, but they only have one bedroom in a small home. So for them, they have this old mobile home that's in a key location, but they have, because it's built so long ago, it wasn't optimized for high density housing. So we check out their lot and we see how big of a home we can fit. We essentially design a home to be able to retrofit that lot specifically to give them the maximum square footage, then design that and build that in a factory in an assembly line, fashion, right? So we build out that home in a factory, and meanwhile we'll be removing their old home, setting the foundation, putting the double wide in replacement to that home, and turning that 700 square foot home into more than doubling the square footage, and then which also will raise the value of her future sale of the home as well, right? So we try to make it a win-win solution. Now, these prices and stuff that I was mentioning might be relevant to us in San Jose, but in different states, these numbers could be much drastically lower. But for example, for her case, her home, she spent about $250,000 to replace her old one with a new one. But now her new mobile home value, if she was to sell today, would be about $390,000, right? So from making that investment to replacing her old home to a new one, she now has a nicer home with higher quality standards, with drywall, with great HVAC systems, dual pane windows, and a beautiful kitchen, beautiful bathroom. Not only does she have a better lifestyle, but she has more value in her home today than if she would have stayed in that home, right? And that benefits both, which I'll transition to the park as well. It benefits her because it beautifies her park. It beautifies her home. And then it also helps the park itself because it makes a nice home in the park owner's park, and then which incentivizes others to want to have nice homes as well, right? And now with that same concept that I just told you about Maria, we also work with park owners and do consulting for them. And how can we help replace a lot of your old units, whether you have 5 or 30 units of old homes, how do we help replace those at scale to build the value of your park as well? So we typically will work with park owners to help find several different ways to raise value in their park. And then we'll also work with park owners to create educational systems for their residents to learn that that there are benefits to upgrading their home. That way they have better tenants that are more invested. And because they both have good investments into this development, they both take care of the units, they take care of the park. And in the end, everyone's happy.
So a unit owner, they rent the space where their home sits, correct? They rent the ground. Is
Correct.
that okay? And is there typically a lot of additional um, land around where the home sits? I guess I'm trying to think. Haven't been in a park recently, but it seems like from memory, and I guess the density depends on the park, but I can remember some being pretty dense as far as the space between homes not being exactly a lot of room there. Um, are you finding that in the parks that you're working in that the ground that they have that they're leasing is regularly adequate to support a larger, significantly larger footprint?
Yeah, I mean, of course, just like any real estate property, every park is case by case, right?
Right.
There are some parks that can only fit single wides, but the most common is really you'll see a single wide with a pop out, and that pop out really doesn't maximize their space much. However, in many cases, you'll have these single wides that are like 700 square foot, and if even if they don't have that much room on the side of the home, they can still expand it 2 to 3 feet, but the main pro and the value add for that consumer is that they're no longer dealing with a 1970 built tin insulation home with a bad roof or anything like that. We also have clients that just want the same footprint, same square footage, but a nicer home, which still in the end can raise their value drastically as well. New roof with shingles, and better subfloor and insulation, and just changing up the floor plan a little bit also helps for them as well.
Sure. So how dependent is the value of the unit owners, I guess the opportunity to appreciate based on just their unit as opposed to, getting more of like a neighborhood reset? I mean, we're more than just you are the one that has increased your value, or is it just a matter of just supply and demand?
Yeah, it's exactly that. I was going to get to that. Is that it is the supply and demand. One of the things that we do is we evaluate different metrics of each park. In some, the common myth that we'll get is that these homes don't appreciate, they depreciate drastically, that blah blah blah. But that kind of depends on the density of that city itself. It also depends on the job opportunities of that area, and it also depends on what are the alternative housing options for people in that area as well. Are the rents low, or the rents high? What is the purchase price of the homes relevant to that park area, right? So we use those as metrics to evaluate whether this park, the units are going to appreciate or not, right? So a lot of what we do is in metro areas where it makes a lot of sense. And with that, we'll find that, people are able to, like I mentioned to you here, is like a 1 bedroom, 1 bath apartment is $3,000 a month. And then owning that new home, like for example, for Maria, she's paying $1,000 a month on the space rent and about $2,200 a month on the mortgage, right? Which is just a little bit more than what if she would pay for a smaller apartment for rent. Now, that little bit more, 2/3, yes, you're paying 1/3 of that to rent still, but 2/3 of that is going towards a mortgage of something that you own, that is part of your net worth, where you can build equity, where it has a big chance of appreciation, and you get tax benefits as well. And these are, it's at a smaller scale, you're getting benefits of what homeowners are getting, right? Which can help ease that payment, which can help build financial security for these families. And the barrier of entry is no longer as crazy high as it is to buy a single family home. People can actually afford that small jump of payment compared to spending $7,000-8,000 immediately after buying a single family home.
Got it. So let me ask you about the park owner uh, side of the equation. So you mentioned kind of $1,000 a month rent for the space. Um, what's the appeal, or what's the um, kind of the conversation you have with a park owner. If I'm getting X per month in rent for the space, uh, does the rent increase if somebody puts a bigger home, or am I able to charge more rent, or is it just I'm getting a better uh, caliber of rental units or rental owners, or give me some kind of what the appeal is for the owner, because I would think that if it's just a ground lease, as long as they're getting their monthly payments, um, I'm kind of curious how the conversation plays out as far as the appeal of unless it somehow improves their bottom line, or makes I mean, obviously it would make the park more appealing if you had nicer units in it, but help me understand the
Yeah.
park owner side of things.
So the advice that we give really is custom to that area. Every area and county has its own jurisdiction of rules and regulations on um, how you can raise rents and that sort of thing. So each strategy is a little bit different. The main, like you mentioned, is the appeal of the park is a very valuable thing. There are cases and sometimes where they are able to raise the rent if a new home development is being put. Normally the case is that if there happen to be vacant lots, that's where the park owner's opportunities are to be able to charge a little bit more on the rent side to put a new home in, right? Because they can't, it's very difficult for them to attract a buyer that will pay a higher rent if it's a very old unit and that sort of thing. But if you actually have a newer home in your park, then, and you have the opportunity to raise that rent, then in some areas that makes a lot of sense to do so. Now, there are rent protections in many areas for residents if they want to upgrade their home, if they want to put a bigger investment into their home to replace it. Normally it isn't to the park's benefit to raise that rent, right? So because they're putting a money investment into the park as well. But each strategy is a little bit different on how they do that.
Got it. You mentioned unused space as far as a strategy for park owners. I'm curious, how often are you finding that there's a significant amount of unused space where they can add additional units?
Very often. Most of these mobile home parks, it's very difficult to build new mobile home parks nowadays, but we are working with a few. But a lot of these old mobile home parks are built in that year I was talking about, this in the 70s, right? And these are built in areas that weren't high density before, and before people, their values was having a large yard, a large porch, a place for them to have a view and that sort of thing. But I'd say more than 80% of the time, there's a decent amount of space for them to be able to expand their home and maximize the living square footage, the interior living square footage. Because another thing to talk about too is these cities and these counties, these are classified as affordable housing, and they have their minimum quota that they need to have as available affordable housing square footage in their areas, right? So that's why this is a perfect tool, because one, we're benefiting the city's quota by putting nicer, bigger homes. And then also it's to their incentive to keep these parks the way it is, to be able to create more affordable housing for that city and for that county.
Got it. So how long have you been working with the park owners and the individual owners in the mobile homes?
Um, did it for about 2 years before I went independent, and then started my business 2.5 years ago, actually. So that's when it really kind of kicked off, because it's such a big problem that we're coming across now is construction, affordable housing. We're having big problems of not having enough labor, not being able to build affordable, cheap housing. And we're really seeing a big shift of traditionally built homes and how it's migrating to now homes that are being built in factories in an assembly line fashion, because it's a better process. It's actually better for the environment, and we're able to produce more homes than if we were to do stick to doing site build.
Got it. So talking about the factory build aspect of the mobile homes, how quickly can a development, you know, from a standpoint of say you get the green light from the city, or even if you're just doing a one-off replacement, I would guess if you're going traditional stick built, you're probably a better part of a year to put up a home. Um, how quickly can an individual uh, mobile be put in place compared to the traditional stick built?
Yeah, so to do a replacement of an old one to a new one, like you mentioned, it takes about a year for traditional, but from start of the order, when we do it, we can actually have from start to finish to when they can move in as little as 3 months. Now that's
Wow.
going to, yeah, and that's going to vary based on the current demand, the material delays, if there's no permit delays and that sort of thing. But we've done it in as short as 3 months, which is quite amazing. And with that, it really showcases how beautiful of a thing this is, because when you look at traditionally built homes, you have so many different issues, like whether it's a weather delay, permit delays, and these sort of things that can cause an issue. And one thing to keep in mind too is that the workers at these in traditionally built homes, they have to be transported to that area to be able to do construction, go back and forth, drive their tools and whatnot. Whereas like in these factory settings, you have so much of a efficient process that's really building these out in a safer manner and a more effective manner. It's kind of like how cars were only for the wealthy before, until it was built on an assembly line, right? Because they were able to pump out more at less cost. And because of that, cars became something for everybody to be able to have. And that's exactly the shift that we're seeing in the construction industry too, right? Right now, it's costing a lot of money to build housing, and it's going to cost a lot more because a lot of our workforce that are actually are Gen X and older people that are retiring, and we don't have enough Gen Z or millennials that want to be working with a hammer and doing construction. So we're having really big issues with that, and that's where these assembly line fashion construction in these factories are really going to be making that difference and creating an impact on how we can build affordable housing.
So tell me a little bit about the conversation or the experience you've had with the local communities and their acceptance of the mobile homes in the community, and possibly creating new parks.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm actually going to be speaking at this Congress event this month. And there are a lot of issues. There's a lot of misunderstandings about what these parks are. Hollywood paints this picture that these mobile home parks are very slum-like and very disgusting, and for not so nice people. And that's what we're facing. We have a lot of these other entities that we're working on. There's people that don't understand what mobile home parks are and how they benefit society. And then we have these people that are trying to close these parks down. And that's what we're fighting against. And that's why we're so passionate about showcasing how beautiful of a thing this is, not only financially, but aesthetically as well. And the quality of the people that live in these parks, they're actually very important to, these are teachers, nurses, working class people that really make our cities feel like this, that are unfortunately going to be very displaced if we don't have this type of housing and this type of opportunities for the working class. And we are facing some people on the opposite side that don't want these parks around, and that's part of it is because of those stigmas. But part of our motion now is trying to showcase how great it is for these people, and then also how beautiful these parks can actually be. Because if you actually take the time to see how nice of a park these things could be, because you could have apartments or single family homes in very bad areas, And then you can have very nice apartments as well. But it's the same as with mobile home parks. You have some not so nice mobile home parks, and you have some beautiful, luxurious mobile home parks that are like a resort or a spa, right? And these are things that I'm very passionate about protecting because of the use cases of the families that need this as housing.
So you mentioned the kind of the creation of a lot of these parks was in the 70s, and how there's a need to replace the units. Um, is there a life expectancy of these, or the factory built ones? Are they more um, similar to a stick built home as far as the life expectancy, life use of one of these types of homes?
The two big metrics with that is, one is the upkeep and the maintenance of that home. Um, I have some, I've worked with some 1960s homes that were very well maintained and taken care of very well. And then I've also dealt with some 15-year-old homes that were not well maintained and are deteriorating and that sort of thing, right? So there's a few metrics that are kind of coming into place, but one of the new things with the homes that we're building now is we're creating and working together on these standards of how they're being built. We're working together with HUD and different associations to be able to build these standards for them to withstand the same standards as any new construction being built now. So we use very strong roofs, and then 2x4 siding, and all of these standards that are similar to new construction. We're doing these same things to be able to build the homes now. But it's tough to say how many years a home would last, because before they really were meant to be temporary. They were really built to be like 10 to 15 years, but that's been proven wrong because we still have so many people living in these 1970s homes, right? So,
Right.
and
No, go ahead.
and the beautiful thing about these mobile homes too is that because the people living here are actually owners and invested into their homes, they're going to take the time to put money to repair, to fix, to remodel their homes, right? Because this is their home. So just like single family homes, you could buy a very old home that isn't in great condition, and you can remodel it and fix it and repair and maintain it.
So as far as getting into a mobile home, you kind of laid out the rent um, scenario in Silicon Valley, and the cost for 1 bedroom, 1 bath, as opposed to a nicer unit that your client bought. Are there any special financing opportunities for the unit owners? Do they qualify for Fannie Freddie type loan, or what's the financing like for these?
Yeah, there are motions for us to work with Fannie and that sort of thing, but they don't currently get covered by them. There are specific financing, we call them chattel loans, where they work for mobile homes that are in these parks. And then we also are working on our own financing company as well, where we're helping make it easier for people to get loans for these mobile homes and parks as well. But typically, you'll see about a 25-year loan of that matter.
Got it. Got it. And do the factories provide any kind of financing, or is it outside financing?
Each state that we're in, it's a little bit different. But in California, there aren't the factories aren't providing any financing of that matter. But it's really finding somebody that will help, and that's why our company is very proud of what we're doing. Is we help create those financing connections for these buyers and for the sellers as well.
Got it. So if you were to describe an ideal opportunity for you, what would that look like?
I'd say for me is what's interesting is for me, my big passion is really trying to create more opportunities for people that aren't as well off, right? So the opportunity for me is to be able to protect these mobile home parks and protect these residents and create and protect their opportunities to be able to own a home, right? What's unfortunately happening with the real estate market is a lot of real estate is being really only benefiting the very wealthy, and for me, because of where I came from, I'm very passionate about creating opportunities for these, whether it's an immigrant family or a low-income family or a teacher. We want to protect their ability to be able to have financial freedom, and that's really our focus and why we're building this company and why we're why we're advocating this type of housing as well.
Got it. Hey, Franco, if we could, I'd like to shift gears here for a second. By day, I'm
Yeah.
an insurance broker, and as such, I work with my clients to assess risk and determine what to do with the risk. And there are three strategies that we typically consider. We first look to see if there's a way we can avoid the risk. If that's not an option, we look to see if there's a way we can minimize the risk. And if we cannot avoid nor minimize the risk, then we look to see if we can transfer the risk. And we do that through an insurance policy that's a risk transfer vehicle. And as such, I like to ask my guests if they can look at their own situation, and it could be your clients, investors, political interest rates, the market, however you would like to identify what you consider to be the biggest risk. And again, for clarification, while I am an insurance broker, I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance related answer. And so if you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Franco Perez, what is the biggest risk?
I think for this conversation is one of the biggest things is really the advocacy. And you mentioned politics. What one of the big risks are people not understanding the value of these mobile home parks and them advocating for these to be closed down or redeveloped into rentals, into rental property. That's what I'm fighting for right now with our conversation on the Congress meeting and that sort of thing, is protecting these parks, making sure we keep affordable housing available. And that's one of the big risks that I see, because a quick government change could really change the landscape of these opportunities for so many people. And we need to protect these mobile home parks and create guidelines and policies to make sure that there's always going to be opportunities and social mobility for the middle class to be able to own assets and stuff like that as well. So that's, to me, I'm finding is one of the biggest risks of our industry.
Got it. Franco, where can listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
You can Google us at Franco Mobile Homes, or all of our links are on www.franco.tv. There you can see how beautiful we're building these homes. You can see how beautiful these communities look. We make a ton of funny videos and educational videos on how this is important. And yeah.
Got it. Well, Franco Perez, I can't say thanks enough for taking the time to talk today. I've enjoyed it, learned a lot, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Appreciate it. And thanks for having me. I love what you're doing.
You got it. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.